Beer. That's how the world's first standing army got paid. Not gold, not silver, not coins. Beer. Every single soldier in the Akkadian Empire received a daily ration of thick, nutritious, slightly alcoholic beer, along with bread loaves baked from the same grain. And here's the twist nobody talks about. This wasn't because the Akkadians were drunkards. It wasn't because they wanted soldiers to fight buzzed. It was because beer, in 2300 BC, was actually safer than water, stronger than food, and more valuable than money. The first professional army in human history was fueled, paid, and kept alive by beer. This is the story of Sargon the Great, the world's first emperor, and the liquid currency that built the very first empire on Earth. Let's go back to around 2334 BC, Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, long before Rome, long before Greece, long before Egypt's golden age. A man named Sargon of Akkad rises from being a humble cupbearer in a small kingdom to becoming the most powerful ruler the world had ever seen. He doesn't just conquer one city, he conquers all of them. From the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean Sea, from the mountains of Iran to the deserts of Syria. He builds the first true empire in human history. And to do it, he creates something that had never existed before, a standing army. 5,400 professional soldiers, paid daily, trained constantly, and ready to march at a moment's notice. Every other ruler before him had relied on temporary militias, farmers who picked up swords during war and went back to their fields after. Sargon changed everything. He made being a soldier a full-time job, but that created a brand new problem. How do you pay 5,400 men every single day? Coins didn't exist yet. They wouldn't be invented for another 1,700 years. There was no banking system, no paper money, no printing presses, no central treasury distributing salaries. So how do you pay an army when money itself hasn't been invented? Sargon's answer was brilliant. He paid them in barley, but not just any barley, two specific forms of it, loaves of bread and jars of beer. Yes, beer. Every Akkadian soldier received a daily ration of about 2 loaves of bread and 2 liters of barley beer. Officers got more, elite units got even more, generals got the most. The beer wasn't a luxury, it wasn't a reward, it was core compensation. It was the very salary of the soldier. Refusing to pay a soldier his beer was the same as refusing to pay him at all. And here's where the story gets really interesting. This wasn't a strange cultural quirk. This was actually one of the smartest payment systems ever invented in the ancient world. Because beer in Mesopotamia wasn't what beer is today. It was something completely different. It was food, it was medicine, it was currency, it was survival. Let me explain. Mesopotamian beer wasn't the cold, bitter, fizzy drink you know. It was thick, cloudy, almost like a porridge. It contained chunks of unfermented barley, yeast, and herbs floating inside. Soldiers drank it through long reed straws to filter out the floating bits. It had a low alcohol content, maybe 3 to 5%, but it was packed with calories, B vitamins, and protein. A single jar of Akkadian beer was basically a liquid meal. It could fuel a soldier for hours of marching. It contained nutrients his body needed to survive in the brutal Mesopotamian heat. And here's the wildest part. It was actually safer than water. Yes, safer than water. Because in 2300 BC, water was deadly. The rivers of Mesopotamia, the Tigris and the Euphrates, were full of bacteria, parasites, and waste. Drinking river water directly could give a soldier dysentery, cholera, or worse. Entire armies could die from a single bad water source. But beer was different. The fermentation process killed almost all harmful microbes. The yeast produced natural antibacterial compounds. The mild alcohol acted as a preservative. So while a Mesopotamian soldier might die from drinking a cup of river water, he could safely drink a jar of beer all day long. Sargon and his commanders understood this on an instinctive level. They didn't have microscopes, they didn't have germ theory, but they had observation. And they observed that soldiers who drank beer survived. Soldiers who drank water often didn't.
But the genius of the Akkadian beer system goes even deeper. Beer wasn't just a drink, it was the world's first standardized currency. Mesopotamian temples and royal storehouses kept extremely detailed records on clay tablets, written in cuneiform script. Some of these tablets, discovered by archaeologists, show payment ledgers for soldiers, workers, and slaves. Every single ration was recorded, every single jar of beer was counted, every single loaf of bread was tracked. The records are so detailed that we can still read them today, almost 4,300 years later. Imagine that! We have the actual receipts of the world's first army. We know exactly how much beer Sargon soldiers drank, on what days and in what units. The Akkadians had created the world's first military payroll system, and it ran on beer. And the beer itself was made on an industrial scale. Massive royal breweries operated 24 hours a day, baking bread on one side and brewing beer on the other. Actually, the two processes were directly connected. Akkadian brewers made beer using a method called bapir. They would bake special twice-baked beer bread, similar to a hard biscuit. Then they would crumble the bread into water, add herbs, and let it ferment in clay jars. The result was a thick, nutritious beer that could be stored for weeks without spoiling. Bread and beer were literally made from the same ingredients in the same bakeries. They were two forms of the same survival food, two faces of the same currency. And here's something almost nobody knows. The beer rationing system was so important that it inspired the world's first written contracts. Some of the earliest surviving cuneiform tablets contain detailed legal agreements about beer payments. Soldiers signing up for service had their daily beer rations written into contracts. Workers building royal palaces were paid in beer. Even slaves received daily beer rations as a form of nourishment. The Akkadian Empire ran on a beer economy. Without beer, the empire wouldn't have functioned. Without beer, soldiers would have starved. Without beer, the empire wouldn't have existed. But here's the part that completely changes everything. The Akkadian beer system created the world's first professional military culture. Because soldiers were paid in beer and bread every single day, they didn't need to farm. They didn't need to hunt. They didn't need to take time off to feed their families. The state fed them. The state hydrated them. The state took care of them. So they could focus 100% on training, fighting, and protecting the empire. This sounds simple today, but in 2300 BC, this was revolutionary. No civilization before Sargon had ever fully separated soldiers from farmers. By doing so, he created the very concept of the professional warrior, a man whose only job was war. A man fed and paid by the state, a man whose loyalty was to the empire, not his village. And the secret to that loyalty was beer. The system worked so well that it spread across Mesopotamia and lasted for thousands of years. The Sumerians used it, the Babylonians used it, the Assyrians used it. Even the Hebrews mentioned beer rations in some early texts. Egyptian armies later borrowed parts of the system. The Greeks studied it, the Romans in their early days even copied it for their working classes. The idea of paying soldiers and labourers with food and drink instead of money was so brilliant that it became a foundation of ancient economies for over 2,000 years. And it all started with one man in 2300 BC who decided to pay his army in beer. Even today, we see echoes of this system in the modern world. The British Royal Navy, until 1970, gave sailors a daily rum ration. The US military served beer to soldiers during World War II. Russian troops were given vodka rations during the brutal battles of World War II. The tradition of feeding soldiers alcohol comes directly from the Akkadian beer ration. Almost 4,000 years later, the same idea still survives. Alcohol as fuel. Alcohol as comfort, alcohol as part of the soldier's daily compensation. Sargon didn't just build the first army, he built the first model of how to pay one, and the world has been copying that model ever since. But here's the final twist. Modern food scientists have actually recreated Akkadian beer using ancient Mesopotamian recipes. Some breweries in the United States and Europe have brewed exact replicas of the bapir method. The verdict? It's actually quite drinkable. Thick, nutty, slightly sour, and full of flavour. Far better than what most people would expect from a 4,000-year-old drink. One brewing professor at Stanford even said the Akkadian beer tasted closer to a smoothie than to modern beer. Imagine that. The drink that paid the world's first army was basically an ancient protein shake. So the next time you crack open a beer, remember this. You're not just drinking a beverage, you're drinking a piece of military history. You're drinking the same liquid that fueled the world's first empire. You're drinking the same compensation that kept 5,400 professional soldiers alive in the brutal heat of ancient Mesopotamia. The first paycheck in human history wasn't gold, it wasn't silver, it wasn't even coins. It was beer, and it built the foundation of every civilization that came after. If this story blew your mind, hit that subscribe button and join the Alternate Past family for more forgotten history like this. And tell me in the comments, would you have served in Sargon's army for 2 liters of beer and 2 loaves of bread every day? Yes or no?